broadcast. And if we don't get knocked off because of inclement weather, we're on. You can tell them who we are.
Hey, folks, welcome to the male version of Fox News. We want to welcome you here today, July the 9th, 8th or 9th. What is this? 8th?
I believe it's about the 8th.
8th.
Of July, to the Wild Bob and Ronnie Show, coming to you from La Follette, Tennessee, US of A.
Beautiful downtown.
And Jerry was wanting to know who that fellow was that kept saying, all men and women and ships at sea.
Mm-hmm.
You know who it was, don't you? Come to my mind.
Yeah, I wrote it in my notes the other day.
Well, starts with a W.
Winford?
Walter Winchell.
Winchell.
Walter
Mm-hmm.
Winchell.
I started to say Wendell Wilkie, but that ain't right.
The window was coming along there sometime like that. But welcome, folks. We want to welcome to you all you folks that land lovers and all you cats coming up from South America with your portable radios and everything. We want to say howdy. We're not going to necessarily say welcome, but we want to say howdy. What's new with everything on the eastern front over here, Ariel?
Well, I believe that we're seeing history. And I'm talking about real serious history every day. We're in a time right now that most people would have never believed. And what I'm talking about is the invasion from on our southern borders. I keep hearing more and more stuff, and it's totally disturbing, especially when they're declaring a gag order on the press and anyone else to where they cannot speak as to what they see or hear, and not allowed to talk to those who are coming across the border. I was listening to a talk show today, and there was a thing came up. A lady called in, and her husband, they had a three-way call, a conference. Her husband was on the line, and she was on the line, and they was talking to Rush. And she is of the Catholic faith. And she said that whoever it is, whether it's a priest or whoever's over their church, I don't know what rank he would hold, or I know it wouldn't be a cardinal, I don't believe, bishop or whatever, whoever was the person who was in charge of their church, called a meeting Monday. That would be yesterday. And at this meeting, it was some type of special call meeting.
She said, a Baptist church.
Well, she said this was Catholic.
No, well, I heard about a.
Well, you're hearing about
Baptist Association.
You're hearing about another one.
Yeah, okay.
I heard about the Baptist thing, but I didn't hear it direct. But I got it back a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, this lady, her husband is a retired doctor, and she said that they had the meeting, and the purpose of the meeting was for those people of the church to see how many would accept or take so many of these illegal aliens. But now let me show you another thing. Now the word illegal alien is going to be changed to
undocumented.
Well, they've already went that way.
No.
Though what we keep changing the meaning of the words, and I believe the word that the Democratic Party, and I'm going to start using Democrats,
right,
because the Democratic Party owns this situation.
right.
This belongs to the Democratic Party, and I want to say anyone who voted for Obama, whenever they put him into place, they trusted his judgment. And this is his judgment. You know, it's kind of like when we used to go into a bar, you was welcome in, but whoever you brought with you, if they caused a disturbance, they didn't just kick them out, they put you out with them. You follow what I'm saying?
This is all part of the Cloud Privin overthrow of the government procedure.
Well, and it's
and
going to
it
work.
is the most brilliant operation I've ever seen.
I would have never believed that this country could be taken over by children unarmed.
It's brilliant.
It's brilliant. You could not ask
I
For a
mean, you
better
and me, every one of us knows what's going on. But if
Oh,
we
yeah.
got down there and they brought them our little snotty-nosed young'uns in there
You,
and know where to go, you know good and well we'd take them in.
Your heart
the
would
fact,
melt.
Yeah, the fact that
Yeah.
they've got a whole bunch of thug teenagers and mixing the bunch, and some that are actually 30 years old pretending to be 14, they're in there too.
And they got
so
that-
They get through the net.
what's that tattoo 13 on there mean anyhow?
MS-13.
Yeah, it means something.
That's a bunch of. That's an organized bunch of gang members,
Oh.
thugs.
Okay, I kind of got off subject right here about this lady, and this was coming straight from the person. She was doing the talking. It wasn't second-handed. And they've requested that the members of these churches. Now, see, when we're talking about the Catholic Church, we're talking about a ton of churches in this country. But and I already heard about the Baptist part of this thing, where they are participating in this.
Yep.
Okay. But here was the thing that really, that is bad enough. But here's what the other thing she said is they requested or pretty much put a gag order on them that they were not to divulge this information to where the press could get a hold of it.
Yep.
And her husband, like I say, who's a retired doctor, he laid out the really scary side of this thing as to the diseases. He named off untold number of diseases, and a lot of these diseases are seriously contagious. And the one that every time I hear it, it sticks with me: Ebola. And he stated
Ebola.
you're right. But he stated that it was the fatality rate was about 90% on this Ebola. But this was a really, I don't know how to say it, but I'll back up and say this again.
That accomplishes two things. One is it overthrows the government, and the other one it thins the population.
It does all sorts of things that we know. I heard another guy, he called into a talk show this morning, and I know the guy, he probably don't smoke, but I'd like to say he's smoking the good stuff. And he said that he would go down there and get 2 or 3 if they'd let him have them. I'll guarantee you they'll let him have them.
Mm-hmm.
If he wants, he can get a dozen if he wants them.
Well, but here's the thing. What does he want them for? So he can get the government assistance that
Now,
they get.
this guy is, from the way he talks, he ain't never been shot at and he ain't never fired a shot in anger. He's one of the type of guys who believes, and I've got nothing against religion, but I don't care, I don't believe. There are certain things that are the real world. And this is the real world.
Wrong. If we had never had porous borders, this would never have happened.
That is absolutely correct. If
Now,
we would have stopped that
they've
border
been-
years ago.
The people that there are people that want to open their arms to everybody in need. That's one bunch. You've got another bunch that goes along with the liberal philosophy, you know, live and let live. And you've also got the people that are actually using this as a tool to overthrow capitalist form of government.
Uh-huh.
But now, what you've got to realize is that there have been many efforts, and most people, you and me and Bob all, I believe, would agree to some form of organized immigration, and that we wouldn't be for sending people back that are already here and established and obeying the law and are doing the right thing. But before you can implement that new policy, you have to stop more from coming in.
Right.
And if they had have done that first and proved they done it, they wouldn't have this opposition to any sort of legislation, but they don't want to hear that part of it.
Well, this thing is...
I believe when they made a change in immigration under Ronald Reagan,
Yep.
one of the stipulations was that they closed the border first,
Yep.
but that didn't happen.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, this country... Okay, let me back in and give some numbers that I've heard today. I heard that since April, there's been in excess or somewhere at 300,000 have crossed the border. Now, this is including the unaccompanied children, which their state is approximately 60 to 63,000 unaccompanied children. And there's no end in sight to this thing. The way this is set up right now, let me back up and say this. They're changing the meaning of the words and the meaning of everything. The United Nations is wanting to declare these people as refugees instead of illegal aliens. They want to change the name of them. It's kind of like, instead of calling that rattler a snake, he was a rope that bites or something like that. But here's what I foresee happening also. A word that they're going to change the meaning of, or the terminology they're going to change for these illegal aliens, is they're going to start calling them guests.
Yeah.
Okay, they have been invited here by the Democratic Party, and when I say that Democratic Party, I'm going back to they supported Obama, and Obama told them up front that they was going to change this country. So they are now his guests since they were invited. They have been invited here, so they're now, Obama owns this. They'll change the word to guest, is what they'll do.
Well, when you control the language, you control the discussion. You silence the opposition, and you've got the battle won.
If you can change the meaning of the words.
Have you ever thought about the Declaration of Independence where it says unalienable rights? Have you ever thought about what unalienable rights means?
I'd have to look it up, but I believe it's a right that's not given by man, but there's something that we were, at birth, we were given.
Well, the word unalienable
means not, you can't change it.
But it's got the word lien in it. If you own a car, you can borrow money on it, but let somebody place a lien against it.
Right.
If you own property, you can let somebody have a lien against it. There's everything that you own right now. You can let somebody else have a lien against it in such a way that they can control it. But these rights, the founders contended that God gave us rights that we were not able to allow a lien to be placed on.
We cannot let anybody compromise it.
That's right. But now, did you ever learn that in school?
Never did.
I never heard of it either.
I'll tell you, I'll have to go back and say, I don't think I learned a great lot in school.
Evidently I didn't learn much either.
I've learned a heck of a lot out here in the world, though. Like I said, but I've took up a lot of y'all's. If y'all want to,
well, I suppose you brought up the UN, and I know Bob's going to try to get the UN to come in and pay his water bill.
Well, the UN is what was the part that they are asking the UN? Oh yeah, the UN is where they're trying to get to change instead of aliens to refugees.
Yeah, I know, and that changes everything.
Well,
it brings under international.
Have a certain status, legal status. Okay, if you can call them refugees, they have a certain legal status.
Okay, I got what you're saying.
Well, in theory, to be a refugee, you have to be fleeing some sort of endangerment, not just poverty or hard times. Your life needs to be actually threatened to become a refugee, a political refugee anyway.
Okay, a drug refugee.
Yeah.
Here's a thing I don't understand either. The drug cartels must have these people in order for their drug industry to function. Drugs don't just come out here and jump themselves into a bag and fly over the border.
That's right.
I bet drones could sure bring them across, though, couldn't they? There you go. Get you a drone. Let's start. There you go. Start sending them drugs up with drones.
Well, they send a lot of them in by these people that are coming, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, drones have changed their meaning. That's a word whose meaning has changed. Drones used to be people like politicians and somebody who served no useful function just showed up.
Well, gentlemen, I have occasion, when I watch TV, a lot of times I turn the sound off because a lot of what you're hearing is BS. And in this border situation, if you'll look at these people, these children and these women, they keep stating that these women and children have walked 1,800
Yeah.
miles. I see these people standing there in flip-flops, and their feet are perfectly clean. Their hair's in far better place than what mine is. I just come off
They
the
don't
loader.
show you the ones before they clean them up, though.
Well, they know they're going to be on TV.
Just look what we do before we go on.
Yeah. But let me add, there's another number that we're not hearing. If you've got 300,000 people and so many of them detained, especially children that are sick, so many of them are dying.
Mm-hmm.
You're not hearing no numbers about in these centers where they're being held. There's got to be.
They won't even let John McCain in.
That's right. They won't let nobody in. And whenever they put a gag order, that goes back to the First Amendment, the freedom of press. So
You mean like that Jacksburg?
yeah, right. Well, we can elaborate on that, but here's another. Somebody made a statement too. I heard on the news today that Israel is calling up 40,000 troops.
Well, let me show you something. You may have not noticed.
That's not 4th of July fireworks there.
No.
Israel's going to start doing something and taking names.
Yeah, and it's
Well.
going to start soon because
Yeah.
they just had another rocket attacked on Israel from the Gaza Strip. Over there, them are peaceful people that just won't coexist.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Israel will. I mean, it's ramping up, and with our dear leader up there, I'm sure that he's got a solution to this problem. He'll go over there and hashtag them and sing Kumbaya with them, and everything will be all right.
You know, I've got this little book that I carry words in, and that's like if I mash my finger, if I break something dumb, like I look up the appropriate words. You know, most of them are 3 and 4 letter words. I have to look them up. But in my book, for what is going on, and for for the leader, or who is designated the leader of this country, I can't find the words to describe what I see and what I feel about what's going on. With what all's going on in the world, he's spending 3 days in Texas fundraising,
But not going to the border.
not going to the border. And I heard another comment made the other day that when he's giving press conferences now, that he's doing it in secure areas like at a military base. And whenever you go onto a military base, you have to pass through security. And they're turning away. Only people who are going to these are the people of choice, or by invitation.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So this is where we're at, gentlemen. We're not in a good situation. And I had a scenario that I was wanting to get out today that the question was asked by somebody, what would happen if the man in charge up here wrote an executive order to take up all the weapons from the civilians? And everybody said, well, there'd be a rebellion. Okay. What do you think that would be the purpose of taking that up? In my opinion, it would be to create a rebellion. By doing so, if you can create a rebellion, and this is another thing that's going on down there that you're not hearing anything about, but I heard today that they're sending military to these states on the border. They're putting United States military on, and they're not to protect. They're not to close the border. They're to deal with the protesters that are protesting the people coming across the border. That's what they're there for.
You
Now,
remember whenever they had Hurricane Katrina and they went around and confiscated
yeah,
people's
they
guns?
absolutely did.
I don't
Military
know why
did.
people put up with that.
Well,
I mean,
The-
I can understand how they got by with what they did up there in Massachusetts when they were after those 2 terrorists. It was so overwhelming and so intense and so quick that people let them search their homes and let them get pushed around and stuff. And they went along with that without any protest. But I don't know how they got them people in there, bayou people go along and turn in their guns.
this is there's things that we don't notice that are tests. this right here could be considered a test, what went on down there at Katrina.
Yeah, and I
That
think
could
this
be
border invasion is a test for something bigger to come too.
Yeah, but there's other subjects we could get
Something
into.
like the Camp of the Saints.
Right.
They're not going to bring youngins forever. They're going to break.
Well,
they're
right
gonna,
now,
they're going to start. They're going to open the door with kids, and then it's everybody.
well, the numbers I just stated, the 300,000 since April, only 63,000 of those were the children, unaccompanied children. Out of 300,000, that leaves 240,000.
Well, now this is not. This is not for the purpose of finding new workers. It's not for finding new citizens. It's for overwhelming the social network of the government and collapsing the economy so that they can refigure things.
They have tried every means available to them over the years during our lifetime to bring capitalism to its knees, to redistribute the wealth of this country through foreign aid into the United Nations and everything else, and they still could not get done what they want. So they said, well, if we can't send it to them, we'll just have them come up here and get it on their own.
It's working.
Yeah.
Let me show you my scenario, or what I see possibly can happen down here in these border states. They send in the military. All right? This is like a bomb. You send the military in there, and they're not sending just random. The military that's been in there, that's going in there, I guarantee you, have been asked certain questions to see how they stand on certain issues. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but doesn't the military code as such in this country prohibit the military from firing on American citizens?
That is correct. But also the guy in charge is not supposed to rule by fiat. He's not supposed to be able to bypass Congress, which he is doing.
City of Follett had an ordinance that they're not allowed to do anything in your property without at least a 30-day notice.
Yeah, they gave you a 30-day notice, didn't
I'm
they?
still waiting on my 30-day notice,
yeah.
and they tore my fence down and trashed the property up there. So laws don't mean anything when they get ready to do it.
Okay, laws. Let's say you've got this military down here, and you get them kind of keyed up a little bit. Somebody spits on one of them. You got the bomb right there set. You got two parties, and you let some little spark set it off. All right, then you get so many people killed right there, be it military or civilian. Then the man up in Washington in charge steps in and says, martial law. We got armed people here that they can even send the people down there, just like we did in this Fast and Furious thing. We had people coming in buying these weapons, the military people or whatever, straw people that are working for the government, buying the weapons, claiming, putting it off on honest gun owners and shipping them to Mexico. It wasn't, a whole lot of that was set up. You take this situation right here, you get the military down there, you get these people fired up, then you send in your group, 2 or 3, to set it off. They're the ones that makes the spark.
I'll tell you something
and then they're out of there and gone.
I'll tell you something else is going on. You've seen all these your people supposedly pushing, promoting the right to bear arms, and these your open carry places going in with these spooky looking guns into Starbucks and Target and whatnot, just to get people upset. They are absolutely the same people that went out with the rebel flags at the Tea Party gatherings to discredit the movement. They're out there working for the other side.
Absolutely. Planet. You take a situation, one of our key things, of course, the key thing I see is food and water. But you take, there was a test run here back, I think it's almost a year ago, where down in one area code, they removed the limit off of, what is that card? I used to call it a food stamp card. It's a
EBT?
Yeah, or something like that. But anyhow, it was one of the government cards they
EB.
removed the limit on it. You could buy
EBC.
anything you want to in that zip code. The people cleaned out every shelf of everything that they could get. At the same time, up north, they did just the opposite. There was a place up north in a certain zip code that they canceled them. Your card didn't work. You get the same thing. You get a right either way you do it.
They cleaned out the shelves either way.
Well, you get a right. Yeah. So this was a test to see if you want to create a crisis. That's all you've got to do to create a crisis. You go and take X many zip codes and say, hey, the limit's gone. Take, and people out here who earn their money the hard way go in there. It don't matter if you've got the money and there ain't nothing on the shelves. What do?
Well, I look at this thing. I'm bad to oversimplify everything.
I like it simple.
And I looked at the problems we have in this government. It all comes back to the money that's been appropriated to do these things. And the House of Representatives has the ability to cut the funds off. And the same thing's true here in the county. The county commissioners have the ability to cut the funds down where it does not put everybody in debt and so much taxes that you can't pay it. So it all comes back basic. Cut the money off and, even on EBT or food stamps. Start gradually cutting it back. Let people feed themselves,
Well, I agree. I see other things too. Our whole society seems, in this area that we're at, we seem to have lost something that over the generations, we have people coming up right now that they don't look at it the way we do. Whenever we look at something, we try to figure out how that we can get it legitimately, where we can work, trade our services,
Right, yeah.
something that we've got to do it legitimately.
Well, we can do it by our labor and our ingenuity.
That's what I'm saying. And do it in the daylight.
Right,
We don't have to come in at 2 o'clock in the night
right.
and steal
Take
it.
my spare tire.
That's correct. And we've got hit 4 times in the last 8 weeks.
Right.
And I'm fed up with it. I'm just fed up with it. The way, right now, I heard a guy on TV today, or heard a story where a guy caught 2 fellas carrying his stuff off. He fired on them. They fired back. First of all, if he fired and they fired back, he should have. First of all, the sequence of events should have been different.
Yeah.
They should have fired on him first, and that car drove off. He must have not had a full clip and 2 spares. If he had,
wouldn't have made it to the end of the block.
it would have looked like Bonnie and Clyde's rides. What it should have looked like.
What did they do to it?
There'll something happen to him. I guarantee you. They haven't caught the car yet, and they haven't caught the people, according to what I've heard.
They're going to charge him for shooting first?
They haven't stated that, but that is in the works.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Well,
in
see,
the works.
that's where your jury nullification can come in. They take that guy to trial before a jury.
Well,
That would turn him
The
loose.
jury was
yeah,
balls
but
of
let me
whatever
show you
gender.
something. Here's what we're running
The jury
into.
was balls of whatever gender they
Yeah.
might be.
Here's what you're running into. If you divide this population up, there's a large percentage of this population that teetotally agrees with what the man in Washington's doing right now. They're
Oh, I
tickled
know
to
that,
death
yeah.
with it. This guy, come on a talk show, and he's telling about how he loved the country. It's kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a fella I once knew years ago and whatever. He'd come in and beat the crap out of the family all day or every time he turned around. And then come Christmas, he'd buy them a lot of Christmas presents. And that's what this sounds to me like. You see what I'm saying? You're saying one thing. It's like the president now, well, the guy up there, his request has went from $2 billion to about $3.1 billion now. And this is not to expedite the deportation of these people. He
Yeah.
knows it, but yet he'll tell this, and people will eat it up. They believe him.
Well, the thing about it is, they're getting ready to do something for the Highway Trust Fund, running out of money. Them for the bridges and everything. What happened to the $761 billion on the stimulus that was supposed to go for infrastructure? There wasn't a bridge rebuilt, there wasn't a highway paved, there wasn't anything done.
No, but Aflac Duck's going to take care of that.
I'm fine.
Yeah, he's going to
John-
raise 12 cents on the gallon gas so
yeah.
he can build bridges
Yeah.
and stuff. Infrastructure.
Gentlemen, we need infrastructure, but the thing of it is, the money is kind of like if you won't go out here and buy you a stick of gum or whatever, it should cost you.
Yeah,
Shouldn't cost you but a penny,
Yeah.
but it'll cost you $1 if Washington buys it for you.
You want me to tell you how to get the Interstate 75 paved all the way from Detroit to Key West?
There's ways to get it
And
done.
it ain't built all that distance, but I can tell you how to get it paved all the way.
Put it on me.
Sell it to somebody.
Good point. What if
You give it to them.
what? Oh yeah, there's a lot of things that you could give away and come ahead.
You give it to them and let them charge $1 a car.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't care. You get on Detroit, wherever you let anybody gets on it. If you're going to drive it to work every day, they charge you like $5 a week.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
But
maintained.
get the government out of it, is
Yep.
what you're saying.
Yep.
The way this interstate system was built was by figuring it into the military budget as national defense.
Yeah.
That's the way they got it built.
That is a
And
good
you know,
thing.
it's a good thing. Ain't no doubt about it. But you know where the Eisenhower got the idea, don't you?
The Audubon.
Yeah.
Audubon.
Yeah. And the way it was laid out, the Audubon was used for landing strips.
Yeah, and they've got to be a mile straight every so often in the
Yeah.
interstate.
Right, to where you can land the airplanes on them.
That's the reason they had all that mess up there on top of the mountain up here. They had to build a straightaway somewhere between Jellicoe and La Follette, and there wasn't no flat spots.
That's why it won't
And
stay up there.
straight spots.
Now, gentlemen, the private enterprise or private sector can do anything, I think, better than the government, other than build the atomic thing, and that scares me.
Let me ask you a question about a little local thing here.
Okay.
Do you suppose that the folks down at Rocky Top need to go up and talk to the people at Jellicoe? Jellicoe's busted.
Bankrupt, aren't they? Or
Yeah.
just
And
well,
Rarity Mountain bankrupt.
bankrupted them. Sure did.
Well, Rocky Top down there better be looking out. I don't know anything about it. I'm not saying that it's a bad deal. I don't know, but I'd at least go talk to them.
Well, we've got things going on right here locally in the county that the citizens, they're paying for the stuff
Yeah.
and they have no idea. Let me show you one that in the city of La Follette, the garbage was being picked up for $5 a month.
Yeah,
Now they voted to raise it to $10.
yeah.
Okay? Most people think that it only costs $10 a month to get your garbage hauled off. That's not correct. If you'll go in and find out what the street department or what they're paying for the sanitation of this thing, it's a far, far more than any $10 a month. The $10 is just a supplement to they're getting X much out of the general fund, and this is just a supplement, is what it is.
Well, let me mention something else when we're talking about La Follette. Paid my light bill, my water bill first of the month. I don't use a whole lot of water. In fact, I didn't use but 36 gallons last month. Do you know what it cost me per gallon for that 36 gallons?
Probably cost you in excess of $1 a gallon.
$1.84 a gallon. Time you figure the water, you figure the tax on it,
Mm-hmm.
you figure the sewage,
Mm-hmm.
you figure the
How'd-
hydrant maintenance.
Right.
For 36 gallons, I paid $61 and something for it. Now I can go down here to Save-A-Lot or IGA or Food City, and I can buy bottled water cheaper than that a gallon.
I could buy Perrier for what I paid and flush my commode with
Yeah,
be ahead.
yeah.
I paid $43 and didn't use
it.
any water. Didn't use any sewer disposal.
This
But I'm still hooked up.
this gentleman is where we do away with the individual by making an individual become a member of the group
The board.
in a socialistic manner. You take, like on the garbage pickup, I can deal with my own garbage because we produce very little because of the way we do things.
Not only can you get rid of your garbage, you can get rid of a few enemies in the concrete business.
Oh, well, I was talking about doing it legitimately, but you don't.
Well, I know, but that's another
Yeah.
service you
That's-
ought to consider charging
Well,
for.
that's a good point. That might be a.
You ought to look into
look
your
into,
brains. I mean, right now you've already figured out how to take your waste and make it into boat anchors and retaining walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered that there might be uses for it you ain't ever really investigated that pays well?
Yeah, diversify.
Yeah, now
huh?
you could take along the lines
Well,
of Jimmy Hoffa and that kind
I'll
of
tell
stuff.
you. I'll tell you something I never had thought about. You know, this is beside useless trivia, but when you put a vault down, if you don't cover that thing correctly and get it done real quick, and it rains, those things will float.
I know.
But boy, I'll tell you what, if you could put a counterweight on, they wouldn't float.
I got another
Well,
little
you know, I
thing.
was in the healthcare industry, and if you ever have to dig a vault up and move it, you dig down the side of it,
If there's
knock
not,
a hole in it, let the water out. Then you couldn't pick it up with a backhoe with it full of water.
Well,
know.
You fellas tell them about Vital Care or Digger one. I'll be back
Well,
in a minute.
you don't have to worry about vaults and things like that if you'll use Vital Care, because if you have an illness or an accident or something and you need transportation to a medical facility, just call 562-9370. That's Vital Care, or you can call 911 and tell them you want Vital Care. And this is not a government agency transportation facility. It's privately owned. Does not cost the taxpayer anything at all. And right now, they are making money off of their business. Even though Medicare, because Obama took $500 billion out when he started Obamacare, Medicare is reimbursing less for medical transportation, as is your providers such as your big providers that take over instead of Medicare.
yeah,
They pay less. So these companies are having to do as much work for less money, but they're still making money. Whereas our county ambulance service costs about $2 million a year to operate, and they lose about $1 million.
there's not any type of financial oversight other than the county mayor, Beard. He's the only oversight, is my understanding, of several departments. That being one of them. I believe there's 2 or 3 others, and
With environmental garbage, he's over there.
yeah, and the airport, I believe,
The dog pound.
the dog pound.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see and I don't hear all these people. We got like 100 people running for office, and there was, 15, 3s, 45, 50 or 60 probably running for this county commission. And they're not talking. They're not coming out here and telling what their plans or what they don't plan to do. And we have no idea.
It's become strictly a popularity contest.
That's correct. It's and well,
Most of them that are running for office don't have any idea what they're there for.
that's right. You know, if you were to remove the incentives like their pay and all this other stuff, the thing would change. You wouldn't have 100 people running for an office if it wasn't for all the amenities and whatever they get out of it. I'm talking about the insurance and whatever. I think that way you'd get people who are truly sincere. And if you can't get that many, if you can't get enough people who are truly sincere, why not just close the thing down? Send the charter back and say to heck with it. If you can't muster up enough sincere people to manage the thing without all the compensation that they receive for it, what's the point?
Well, you take most of them, when I say they don't even know what entails, the job entails, all they're running for is either an ego trip or for the benefits that they're going to get, or they think it might be a stepping stone for a higher paying government job. I see people spending all kind of money. I mean, I can't understand why anybody would spend the kind of money they spend to be on the school board. You know, if they really feel like they are a public servant, let them not take any benefits.
That's right. If they're going to be a public servant, surely to goodness they can afford to pay for their fuel to get there. They can pay for their fuel to get to McDonald's or wherever, you know what I'm saying?
Now you have to do like one, and they called him in it. You know, they had a little trip going to Nashville. So this one former county commissioner rode with another one. Then he turned in an expense report for so many miles on his personal vehicle, you know. Where they called him for that, it was like $200 or $300, you know.
Right.
And he had to pay that back.
But but the intent was to do wrong. He knew it. Anyhow.
Like I say, I don't believe there's any way you can entrap anybody. Because there ain't no way they can entrap me, because I don't have any inclination to do anything wrong to start with. So.
There was somebody, they wrote an article or something, and this guy was a shyster. Had been all of his life. He learned when he was a kid, if he would work it the right way, he could get an extra ice cream cone.
Right.
By the way he would do it.
Right.
And he learned to do this thing. And this guy, he ended up being terminally ill. And he wrote an article, and it was in the Reader's Digest.
Right.
And he told a lot of the things, like he said, don't waste your time on an honest person. Said you cannot
make any money off
no,
it.
said you can't do no good with an honest person. And said if you go up to scam somebody, he said if they ask you a couple of questions, you know, intelligent questions, said leave them alone. Said don't waste your time on it.
Right.
Because they're looking, they're trying to see what's going on.
Right. Yeah.
But then at the end he says, right now, he said if I was in the business of shysting people, he said the two things I'd go after, he said I'd sell gold and reverse mortgages.
Right.
He said these are the two gold mines.
Silver too.
Yeah, silver now, silver. But he said the gold, he said you sell that collectible gold out here to somebody, and said they're going to sit on it for 10 years.
Right.
And he said by the time they find out it ain't worth nothing, said you're long gone.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you something. I walked in on this, so I don't know how it started, but you said something. Have you ever noticed that these here Nigerian scams that you always are getting, they've got this thing set up so they admit they're trying to violate a law somewhere, and they're going to cut you in on the deal.
Yeah.
And that means that they're already shooting for the dishonest people.
Right.
I told you about the one about the credit card, where that they'd sell you a stolen credit card,
Right.
and you had to pay for it, buy a credit card. That's the only way you could pay for it.
Right.
And anybody that can't see through that, can you imagine giving them your good number for that? And they're
I know,
gonna
some
send
guy
you-
on-
You have to be real careful. But if you're in the market for some propane, you do not have to be careful down in Sawmill Holler. You go down there, he will shoot you straight. He's still got a little bit of that red, white, and blue 4th of July propane left over. If you won't go down there and get some of that, you know, and That's Digger Wilson down in Sawmill Hollow, right where the road split. Let's go on down there. If you need your little Vista heater tuned up or anything, take it down there. If you need to go ahead and get some tanks filled up, because regardless of what the global warming people say, it's going to get cold this winter again. So go on down and see Digger Wilson. That's 562-544.
44.
5444.
Right.
5444.
Yeah. That's where it is. That's Wilson's propane.
Back, it used to just fascinate me how easy it was to get heat as compared to what we used to do.
Right.
Man, I'll tell you what, cutting wood, you might think you're Paul Bunyan, but I've cut wood for, I don't know, I tell you,
my whole life was spent
cutting wood. Back in the 80s, we had a cold spell.
I'm talking about back in the 40s and 50s, whole life.
I'm talking about back in the 80s, early 80s. We had a winter
That's what they said everybody's going to freeze to death because of
global warming.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I went out and I had a load of wood cut, or most of a load.
Right.
I like some having a load.
Right.
And I was pulling a wagon with a tractor, and it was a gas tractor, gasoline.
Right.
Gasoline, once you get it going, will usually run,
Right.
no matter how cold it is.
Right.
That old tractor got to it didn't want to run right, and I had a dog that she always went me everywhere.
Right.
And this dog, the first time I ever seen her, well, let me tell you what it was. It was 20 below zero. The chainsaw, I'd put my gloves over the muffler to try to warm my hands. Now I'm talking 20 below zero, out trying to do wood, and you can't cut wood if there's any moisture in it. Chainsaw just won't do no good.
You need a rock saw for that.
Yeah, and there's a tree there that the honeysuckle had growed up through. There's snow on the ground too, and this dog I had with me, she never would. She was always going. She went there and dug her a hole right down at the trunk of that tree, buddy, and got down in that honeysuckle.
How about that?
Yeah, I'd never seen her.
That was one of them 3 dog nights, right?
Yeah, buddy. But anyhow, that's probably global warming.
You know what
I
a
guess.
3 dog night is, don't you?
Yeah, I sure do.
Same
That's a
forces-
cold night, buddy.
The same forces that's going to create global warming, that's the same thing that said they were going to freeze us all to death in the 80s.
Well, if we fall for a lot of this stuff, I'll tell you what. These people that are preaching global warming, whenever they start turning their electricity off, start walking instead of driving, and that's another thing I heard the other day. That guy that he was, I believe he was one of the founders of Google or had something, I don't know what it was, but
Page?
anyhow, he's
Name
independently pretty well.
Name Page.
It may be. But anyhow, he said one of the things that we must do away with is private ownership of automobiles.
What?
Do away with private ownership of automobiles. Now, I don't know how he's expecting us to get around, but
Well, you take the bus.
yeah,
You know,
okay,
this country,
yeah,
That way, if you have an
spend half-
indirection, you just turn the bus off.
yeah.
this country has always had a love affair with the automobile. And we have laid out our communities and our cities and our industrial expertise and everything because we could travel, we could commute.
But we need to get everything consolidated. We need public transit. We need people to use public transit because it's so much more reliable. It's cheaper on the individual. And just look at those buses down there in New Orleans. Whenever they had that, they forgot to get them out of the creek.
They forgot to get them out of the creek. They sat there and went underwater.
Yeah.
You know.
I forgot. Well, everybody has a in the system. over there.
Do you reckon where we're busting all these guests, Obama's guests?
Yeah.
Their buses don't seem to be underwater. They seem to be doing okay.
Woman told me a joke.
Well, did you know that Ray Nagin finally wound up getting 5 to 7 years?
Yeah. The woman told me about gas. Said she was from Cleveland, and she was going in this restaurant with one of her buddies for lunch. They worked together, and they went in there, and this guy come over to greet him, and at this hotel, they went to eat a motel. They went to eat here at this cafeteria at this motel well, not a cafeteria, but this restaurant, this motel, because it was lunchtime and they had all that. So they said they went in there and said they walked, when they got there to go in, this maitre d' come out, you know, and was going to take them and give them a seat, and he looked at these two, and they was there together, and he said, "Are you all gayest?" And she said, she looked at her buddy and says, "Does he think we're lesbians?" And she said, "No, you damn fool. He won't know if we're staying in the motel."
We're gayest.
What?
Want to know if they were gayest.
Right.
And the woman says she was a Yankee. She didn't understand hillbilly. She said, "Does he think we're lesbians?" And the woman says, "No, you damn fool. He wants to know if we're staying in the motel."
Yeah, Lordy. Fellas, you know, on this show, we stay pretty serious all the time.
That's real serious.
Yeah. Well, I was going to. You ever notice on the nightly news, right at the very end, they always got a feel good
Right, yeah.
thing. They won't always leave you feeling good.
Right.
Well, maybe that's good, whatever. But I saw one last night, and it was the best I'd ever seen about anything. I see all this bunch of whoever can do this or that, but anyhow, this fella was 90 years old. He was a World War II veteran, and there was this 3-year-old lived next door to him, a little boy. And the older man had a John Deere tractor, and this little boy had him a little
Toy.
one. But anyhow, the thing about it was, this little boy would close his eyes and run into things. And I thought, now right there's a spunky youngin'. And they was working on the bicycle, and this 3-year-old was putting the bolts together, and the washer goes on first. And this older fella, they said anywhere you seen him, you'd see this kid. This kid, you know what I'm saying? They bonded, is what I'm saying. And in the end, the youngin's dad says, "Well, we're going to move," and they've talked the older fella into going to some kind of assisted living, and you name it's all this crap. And I thought to myself, you talk about not using any good sense. With that older fella and that young'un would get more out as far as knowledge and everything. Right there's an asset. I'd stayed there till that old fella, if I had a young'un like that was bonded to him like that, I'd stay there. I don't care if I'd had to pitch a tent outside. He said the family was growing or something like that. But I'll bet this older gentleman, whenever they take him out of there and they put him in a controlled environment of whatever you want to call it,
very long.
he won't last long. He's out there, he's mowing, and him and this young fella was racing them things.
Now let me tell you what I did with my mom and dad. They had some age on them when I was born. They were like 44 years old when I was born, so that meant they were much older than me because I was 8 years the baby. But Dad retired. He had a little bout of illness, but recovered real well. And one day he said, says, "One of these days I may have to go somewhere and live." I said, "Well, let's talk about this right now." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Why don't you come on down to my house now while we can enjoy you, and my children, your grandchildren can enjoy you, rather than waiting when you got one foot on the grave, the other one on a banana peeling, and we're just there waiting for you to die." So he came down there, and they lived a grand total of about 15 years at my place.
There you
Not
go.
because they had to financially, because it was good for my family,
Right.
for my mom and dad to live with me, because they both were very verbal. They could tell you everything that ever happened in their lifetime. None of them were senile. Neither one of them were. And
Didn't rub off, did he?
but I enjoyed having them so much. But my dad said, "This is the awfulest house I've ever seen." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You don't never need no groceries or nothing here?" I said, "Well, if I do, I'll let you know." Because 15 years I never charged him a penny's rent or let him ever buy anything except what he wanted to.
Well, this is something. Whenever they talk about the family unit breaking up, this is one of what I think we have lost.
It's wrecked the black families.
Oh, of course it has. I heard a statistic the other day. They and boy, this sure surprised me. They said in the colored, I don't know what you call it anyhow, but poverty or whatever. They was talking about poverty, and they said that out of the colored people who waited until they were married to have children, that only 2% of the families where you've got a father and a mother and children, whatever, said only
below the poverty
only 2% of these family units were below the poverty level.
It's the same about white families too.
98% of them, 98% were not below the poverty level.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. 98% of them were above the poverty level. Only 2%. I may have not said that right, but only 2% of these family units were below the poverty level.
Right, yeah.
And that just kind of stuck with me. You know, that tells you something. And grandchildren, if you got a good set of grandparents, there's a ton of stuff. I think there's a certain amount of wisdom that goes along.
Well, you take now our grandyoungers, we've got any, Bob does, I don't think you do and I don't, but just imagine what they can learn from us.
Well,
and I'm serious about it.
Yeah, that's right. There's stuff, I call it useless trivia.
You know,
but you and I have got life experiences that you'll never read of in a book.
I'm like Mark Twain. When I was 18, I thought the old man was a fool. But when I was 21, I was amazed at how much he'd learned in 3 years. I've said this before. A lot of our generation they don't ever get tested to know what they're capable of doing. Here's what we're really losing. Bob remembers when this country was pretty free. You and me remember when it was reasonably free. You wouldn't be bothered. You'd leave people alone, they'd leave you alone. We've all watched it go to the point now that there ain't no freedom left except in theory and people's grandiose speeches. But we know what we've lost. Bob more so than you and me, and we still realize what's gone. But the kids that have grown up in the last 20 years don't know what's gone. They don't understand it. It's something foreign to them. They don't realize they've lost anything.
Right. If I could give some people a word of advice, if your parents are living, take them home with you, whether they need to go or have to go or not. Take your wife's parents home with you. Take your family, keep them together. It's the greatest experience in the world. It was for my mom and dad to live with me.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're about out of time and stuff. I can relate to that. My wife's mother lives with us, and that's I don't know how you call it, a blessing or whatever. It does have a calming effect, and I'm thankful that she is in good health as she is.
Right.
And she's 93.
Right.
And still sound of mind and whatever else. And we're lucky. Like I say, we're just lucky. That's all there is to
lucky.
it.
I had my mother till she was 91.
Mm-hmm.
Then my dad, I had him. He lived to be 100.
Yeah.
So had him an additional 9 years, and of course I'll tell you how he was. You know, my mother had 8 children.
Mm-hmm.
She had broken her hip. She fell out of a barn up there working in tobacco and broke her hip. Had walked on a cane. She lived to be 91 years old. My daddy said, I told that woman if she had quit dipping snuff, it was going to kill her.
Well, fellas, there's a lot of things out here that they stick with me from those times sitting with my grandparents and sitting there doodling, drawing a map in the dust or whatever else. and just listening to the stories.
Right.
It's
Well, we have told all the stories we need to tell today, fellas, because we're timed out.
okay.
So I guess maybe we ought to hush and let these people eat supper, because I know
Yeah.
they've been just sitting there waiting.
Yeah. This year useless trivia that we're kind of putting out there.
Yeah, just sitting there on the edge of their chair, starving to death, not wanting to miss a minute and not wanting to miss supper either. Thank you, everybody. We'll be on the radio on Saturday and right back here, 4 o'clock.
Right. Saturday.
Yeah, we'll be in the archives too.
Live at 5 at 4, huh?
Thank you, thank you. See you, everybody.